I woke up in the hospital after a major car accident. My mom demanded I get discharged early, against doctor's orders, to save money. 3 days later, they all went on a luxury vacation and left me home alone. When they came back, he opened the door and they started screaming. My name's Emily. I'm 29. I work remotely in graphic design. I live just outside of Portland, and last month I got hit by a pickup truck on my way home from work. I don't remember the actual crash. 1 second I was at a stoplight thinking about whether I had any clean towels left, and the next I was waking up in a hospital room with a tube in my arm and a pounding headache that made me nauseous. Everything was a blur. The lights were too bright. My ribs hurt when I breathed. I couldn't really move. But what I do remember, very clearly, is the first thing my mom said when she saw me. We need to get you discharged before this starts costing more. Not, oh my God, you're okay. Not, how are you feeling? Just money. That was her priority. I blinked at her, trying to understand if I was hearing right. Maybe I still had a head injury. Maybe I imagined it. But no. She kept going. Said my cousin, Nate, could check on me at home. He's basically a doctor. He's not. He's a second-year med student who once asked if you could get rabies from touching a squirrel. A nurse came in and gently told us I had a mild concussion, internal bruising, and maybe a cracked rib. They recommended I stay overnight for monitoring. Standard stuff. My mom shook her head before I could even say anything. We'll handle it. We're not paying hospital rates for her to sleep. And here's the part that's hard to admit. I didn't fight her. I didn't argue. I didn't push back. I just nodded and let it happen. Part of that was the concussion, I think. But mostly, it was habit. I've spent so long trying not to be a burden that when someone tells me I'm too expensive to take care of, I kind of believe them. I gave her medical decision rights years ago, just in case. I'd been sick, and she insisted it was smart in an emergency. I didn't think she'd actually use it. Not like this. They wheeled me out of the hospital that same evening. I couldn't stand on my own, so my dad sort of half lifted me into the car while my mom argued with the front desk about billing codes. The whole ride home, they were on speakerphone with my sister, planning their vacation, talking about airport parking and whether they packed enough sunscreen. I sat there with a pillow clutched to my side, trying not to throw up. When we got home, they settled me into the guest room, handed me a bottle of ibuprofen and said, "Try to rest. We leave early." And that was it. They left the next morning. Just left. No check-in. No list of emergency contacts. No food stocked. Just a text from my mom later that day. "Let us know if Nate stops by. He said he might swing through." He didn't. By the second night, I couldn't sit up without getting dizzy. I had to crawl to the bathroom. At one point, I thought about calling an ambulance, but when I checked my bank account to order an Uber, there was nothing there. Like literally nothing. $6.74. They'd emptied my account. My mom had access for emergencies. I guess she thought her beachside massage counted. That's when it really hit me. I wasn't just being ignored. I was being used. I wasn't their daughter. I was their backup wallet, the emergency fund, the thing you rely on when it's convenient and forget about when it's not. So yeah, I lay there for a couple days, in pain, alone, still trying to justify it somehow, like maybe I had been too expensive, maybe it wasn't that serious, maybe I was being dramatic. But spoiler, when they came back from their little vacation, they were in for a surprise. And their lives would never be the same. I grew up thinking it was normal to treat pain like a personal flaw. If something hurt, you didn't complain. You iced it, taped it up, and moved on. That's how things worked in our house. You were tough, or you were dramatic. And guess which one I was always accused of being? I'm the oldest of two. My little sister Sophie was born when I was 5, and from the moment she showed up, it was obvious she was the favorite. Not in a cartoonishly evil Cinderella stepsister kind of way, just quietly, consistently. When Sophie cried, someone always came running. When I cried, someone always sighed. She got the best snacks, the new clothes, the birthday parties with themes and matching cupcakes. I got hand-me-downs from cousins and a lot of we'll sees that always meant no. When I broke my wrist falling off the swing set at age 8, my mom said it was probably a sprain. I spent 2 weeks trying to write with my left hand before they finally took me in. It was fractured. We left the urgent care with a cheap wrist brace and a warning to be more careful next time. When Sophie scraped her knee at a playground, immediate bandages, antiseptic spray, ice cream. My mom told her she was so brave. I'd broken a bone and gotten a lecture. Same story with school. I got good grades, quietly. Sophie passed a math test and it was posted on the fridge for a month. She got braces, dance lessons, tutoring when she needed it. I once asked about therapy after a rough year in college and got a speech about how some people are too sensitive these days. I learned to stop asking, to stay useful instead. By the time I graduated, I had a decent job and moved home to save money. That's what I told people anyway. The truth was, I'd tried to move out, and my parents guilt-tripped me into staying. You'll just waste money on rent. We could use the help. Sophie's still in school, it wouldn't be fair to leave us short. So I stayed. I paid a good chunk of the mortgage, picked up groceries, paid the internet bill, covered Sophie's textbooks one semester, and yes, started saving. Quietly, in a separate account. I had a plan. One day, I'd leave. Get my own place. Start fresh. I never told them the exact amount I'd saved, but my mom knew I was putting money aside. She'd helped me set up the account years ago, for emergencies. She still had access. I'd meant to change that. I just didn't get around to it. Then came the accident. And suddenly, I wasn't helpful anymore. I wasn't the reliable one. I was a problem, a cost. They took me home against medical advice. Said my cousin Nate would check on me. He didn't. They packed their bags, left for vacation, and forgot about me. Or pretended to. I tried not to panic, told myself I'd be fine. I just needed a few days to rest. By the 3rd day, I could barely stand. I was dizzy, nauseous. Everything hurt. I decided I'd had enough. I was going back to the hospital. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching my phone, and opened my bank app to book an Uber. That's when I saw it. $6.74. I blinked, refreshed the app, checked the activity log. The money, the account I'd been building for over 3 years, was gone. Transferred. All of it. I felt sick, and not just from the concussion. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to tell myself it was a mistake. Maybe I misclicked. Maybe it was a display error. But deep down, I already knew. I called my mom. She picked up on the 3rd ring, her voice loud and cheerful. "Hey, sweetie, everything okay? We just got to the resort. Wi-Fi's a little spotty." "Did you transfer money out of my savings?" She paused. "Yes, I moved it. Don't freak out." "Don't. Mom, you took all of it. That was my entire savings." "I didn't take it," she said, like that made a difference. "I moved it. To protect it." "From who?" "From you. Look, honey, you're not thinking clearly right now. You're impulsive. You just had a scare. You're emotional. You'd spend it all trying to prove a point." "A point? I was trying to get back to the hospital." "You don't need to go back to the hospital. You're resting. Nate's going to stop by." "He hasn't." "Well, he said he might. But I promise, this is for your own good." I didn't know what to say. My ears were ringing. My whole body felt cold. She added, "We'll put it back when you're feeling better. Let's just take a deep breath, okay? You always overreact when you're stressed." I hung up without replying. She texted 2 minutes later. "Don't make this bigger than it needs to be. We love you. Talk soon." I stared at the screen until it dimmed and went black. And that was the moment. Not the crash. Not the hospital. Not even waking up alone in an empty house with no pain meds and no food. It was that call. That calm, polished voice explaining why it made sense to steal from me, for my own good, why I couldn't be trusted with my own savings, why they got to decide what was responsible and what was impulsive. It broke something open, because they didn't just forget me. They emptied me out. They left me hurt, helpless, and alone, and then took the one thing I had, the money I saved to leave, to breathe. And the worst part? They didn't even see it as theft. They saw it as parenting. That's when I stopped feeling guilty and started making a plan. I didn't call her back. I didn't reply to the text. I didn't send a follow-up asking for the money. I didn't beg or reason or try to make her see my side, because by then I finally understood something that had taken me way too long to learn. They didn't care. Not in the way people are supposed to care about you. Not in the way you care about someone when you've watched them bleed and break and still show up for you. They didn't see me. They saw a resource, a utility, a safety net that complained too much. And when that net tore, they left. So I stopped trying to patch it. I stopped trying to be the bigger person. I stopped trying, period. And I picked up the phone. Not to call a therapist, not to call Sophie, not to call my mom back and play nice. I called Eric. Eric isn't just a lawyer. He's a friend. An actual friend. One of the few people who ever saw through the polite version of me, the one that smiled too much and apologized for everything, and asked what I was really thinking. We met in college. He used to say I'd make a great designer and a terrible doormat. I didn't know how right he was until now. He picked up after 2 rings. "Emily?" I didn't cry. I didn't even say hi. I just said, "I need help." And he said, "Okay, start from the top." So I told him everything. The accident, the hospital, the forced discharge, the vacation, the bank account, the savings, the silence, all of it. He listened. Really listened. Not in that that's crazy way people do when they're already half distracted. He asked questions, took notes, paused when I said I wasn't sure if it sounded bad enough. He said, "It's worse than bad enough. It's financially exploitative and medically negligent." And then he said something I wasn't expecting. "We can do something about this. Legally." I'd always assumed family stuff stayed in the emotional gray zone. That you couldn't call it abuse if there were no bruises. That you couldn't call it theft if you gave them access. That suing your parents was the kind of thing only soap opera villains did. But Eric explained it clearly. I had a strong civil case. They'd taken thousands from an account that wasn't theirs. They'd overridden medical decisions with no regard for safety. They'd left me alone, injured, and without access to care or money, while knowingly relying on me for financial support for years. He said we'd start with a demand letter, that we'd lay out the timeline, the facts, the bank records, that if they didn't respond or tried to retaliate, we'd escalate. And he asked me one more thing. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" I said yes, not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to make a scene, but because for the first time in my entire life, I wanted out, completely, cleanly, permanently. So we filed. It started with an envelope. A legal courier delivered it 3 days later, the morning my parents and Sophie returned from their vacation. They came back tanned and laughing, dragging their wheeled suitcases across the driveway like they hadn't left a body cooling in the guest room. I wasn't there, but he was. Eric answered the door. According to the neighbor across the street, who watches everything through her blinds, It was chaos. Yelling, accusations. My mom shouting, "Are you serious right now? She's suing us?" My dad swearing under his breath, and Sophie asking, "What the hell is this about?" Eric didn't say much, just handed over the paperwork and gave them a card. The texts started rolling in about 30 minutes later. First my mom. "You're doing this? Really? After everything we've done for you?" Then my sister. "You're being insane. You're not thinking clearly." Then my dad, who never texts. "We need to talk. This isn't the way." I didn't respond. Instead, I emailed them. One message, one attachment. PDF titled, "In case you forgot." Inside, screenshots of every bank transfer I'd made to cover the mortgage, bills, groceries, Sophie's textbooks. A copy of the discharge report from the hospital. Screenshots of the text thread. Me asking for help, no replies. A detailed bank statement showing exactly when they transferred my savings and where it went. The last page was a copy of the demand letter Eric had written, outlining the legal damages we were seeking, reimbursement of the full stolen amount, plus additional compensation for medical negligence and emotional distress. I didn't write a single word in the email body, just the file. They opened it. Then the real panic started. My mom called 7 times in a row. Then again. Then Sophie called. Then Rachel, my cousin. Then my aunt. Word was spreading. Suddenly, everyone remembered I existed. I started getting messages that sounded more like guilt than concern. "We didn't mean to hurt you. You've always been part of the family, Emily. We just thought we were doing what's best." Somehow, I was still the irrational one, the emotional one, the problem. Not the one who'd been left behind. Not the one who'd been paying their bills for the last 4 years while getting mocked for working from home. Not the one who'd nearly died and been abandoned with nothing but a half-used bottle of ibuprofen and a cracked phone. But that's the thing about people like them. They only love you when you're useful. And I'd finally stopped being useful, so I stopped answering. I shut down my part of the joint family phone plan, changed my bank accounts, moved out. Quietly. I found a studio apartment downtown. It's tiny, and the windows stick, and there's a weird smell in the hallway I haven't figured out yet. But it's mine. I cook what I want. I work in peace. I have my own key, my own mailbox, and a space heater that hums at night like a lullaby. Eric checks in every few days with legal updates. The case is moving forward. They haven't responded formally yet. Just more emails begging me to drop it. But I won't. Because this isn't about money anymore. It's about what it means to say, "You can't do this to me. Not again. Not ever." It's about letting the screaming happen on the other side of a door I never have to walk through again. And it's about remembering that I wasn't crazy, or dramatic, or impulsive. I was just finally done. I got better. I should probably start there, because I realized after everything happened that no one had actually asked. Not once. Not, "How are you healing?" Not, "Is your pain better?" Not, "Did the headaches go away?" But yes, I recovered. Not overnight, and definitely not thanks to any homemade remedies or well wishes from the people who were supposed to care. It took time. Weeks of quiet rest. Real doctor's visits. A physical therapist who didn't treat me like a nuisance. A few days where I broke down in the middle of brushing my teeth because my ribs still ached and I didn't know if I'd ever feel safe in my own body again. But eventually, I got better. I found a new doctor, paid out of pocket, with help from a friend who floated me a small loan, and got the kind of care I should have received from the start. And once I moved out of that house, the one that somehow felt colder than the hospital, I started breathing again. Like actually breathing. Deep, full breaths that didn't feel like a luxury. I think that was the moment I knew I was really done with them. When I realized that healing was something they actively stood in the way of. The lawsuit? That was just a formality. Eric handled everything. He was calm, steady, and absolutely ruthless. He didn't let me second-guess myself. Every time I said, "Do you think I'm taking it too far?" he replied, "Emily, this isn't personal. It's legal. And you're completely within your rights." I believed him. My parents, on the other hand, thought it was a bluff. They ignored the initial paperwork, pretended it didn't matter. My mom kept sending messages like, "You'll regret this. Families don't sue each other." My dad texted once to say, "Enough. You made your point." As if this was all some dramatic performance and I was overdue for my curtain call, but the longer they ignored it, the more it cost them. Eventually, Eric made it clear we were ready to take it to court. And then, like magic, they wanted to talk. They offered to settle. Quietly. No admission of guilt, of course. Just a check. A transfer. An agreement that we would all move on if I dropped everything. I didn't respond right away. I let them wait 2 days. Then I told Eric, "Take the deal. But I want every dollar back, every cent they took, and a written acknowledgement that I am not responsible for any of their future bills." He said, "Done." The money hit my account on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting on the floor of my new apartment, eating dry cereal out of a mug because I hadn't unpacked my bowls yet. I stared at the screen for a full minute, watching the numbers update, watching my savings, the ones I'd worked years for, reappear like they'd never left. And for the first time since the crash, I felt like myself again. They hadn't won. They hadn't broken me. But they were definitely starting to break. I didn't have to do much to know that. Word got around. A few extended relatives reached out with vague, "hope you're okay" messages that read like coded apologies. One of my aunts hinted that my parents were under a lot of financial pressure lately, and that Sophie was having a hard time adjusting. I didn't ask for details, but I heard enough. The mortgage payments were late. The utility bills weren't covered. The grocery money they'd come to rely on wasn't showing up anymore. I imagined the house felt a lot bigger without me in it. Empty rooms, empty fridge, empty bank account. Sophie posted something vague and bitter on Instagram about people who can't take a joke and being stabbed in the back by family. I didn't engage. I just muted her account and went back to my real life. And then, like clockwork, my mom emailed me. No subject line, just a wall of text. "Emily, you've made your point. I think it's time we let this go. Families fight, but they don't hold grudges. You've always been the responsible one. We never meant to hurt you. Things got messy, and yes, we may have overstepped, but we're still your family. Can't we move forward from this?" She didn't mention the money, or the hospital, or the part where she left me alone and took my savings without a second thought. Just guilt. Polished, passive-aggressive guilt, wrapped in nostalgia and nice words. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Eric and blocked her number. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt quiet. And sometimes that's enough. I live alone now. 1-bedroom apartment. Nothing fancy. The walls are a little thin, and the oven makes a strange ticking sound. But it's mine. I pay my own bills. I make my own grocery list. I go to physical therapy once a month just to make sure my shoulder doesn't stiffen up again. I bought a second-hand couch and a decent lamp, and when I sit on that couch at night, with the lamp casting this soft glow over the room, I feel something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. The thing no one tells you about cutting off family is that it's not dramatic. It's not a movie scene. There's no climactic screaming match or final door slam. Sometimes it's just silence. No more texts. No more being drained dry. No more tiptoeing around other people's comfort. Just space. Just peace. One night, a few weeks after the settlement, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. They didn't leave a message. Then another call. Then a text. "Please, Emily, just talk to me." I didn't recognize the number, but I knew the voice behind it. I didn't reply. Instead, I closed my laptop, turned on the kettle, and watched the water boil. And I thought, this is what they were so afraid of. Not the lawsuit, not the money, me, choosing myself. They'd spent years making sure I believed I wasn't worth saving, that I was lucky to have them, that being useful was the same as being loved. And now I was none of those things. I was just free. They wanted me quiet, broke, and grateful. I'm none of those things anymore, and that's the real win. That's it. That's the story. I know some people will say I went too far, that you don't sue your own family, that I should have forgiven them, or tried harder, or kept the peace. But honestly, I tried. For years. And peace doesn't mean much when you're the only one paying for it. So, what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. And if this story hit home for you, or you just want more like it, go ahead and subscribe.